Let me say a warm welcome to day 8 of the Divershefy Club launch and International Speaker Series. My name is Silvia Smetana, and I'm the co-founder of Divershefy and your host today. Our last session of a full week of exciting panels and fireside chats. Today we have with us, according to the poll, about 17% investors, 17% board members, 50% senior women leaders, and 50% others. Thank you for that information. So in a couple of minutes, I will introduce the speakers, but before I do that, just in case you have not attended the launch of the Divershefy Club on October 1st, let me catch you up and give you a short introduction to what we do. Divershefy brings women into boardrooms and C-suites, and the Divershefy Club is a new global network of women who are in boardrooms and C-suites, who support other women to get there with the help of board members, investors, and corporate leaders. Our speaker yesterday, Aviva Wittenberg-Cox, said, if you cannot catch the fish, don't blame the fish. And what she was referring to was the fact that the lack of women in top leadership positions has more to do with the issues around leadership and business culture than with women. So my suggestion on behalf of Divershefy is, we can say, let's get more fish into the pond, which refers to increasing the number of women available to be in those top positions. Let us make sure that the fish can grow strong and healthy, which in our context means that women should be trained to be confident, trained in terms of their readiness to be in board positions in C-suites. And let us train the fishermen, or women, fisher women also, how to catch a fish, which means how to set up the right business culture and the right kind of way how you go about diversity and inclusion in your company and so on. And also train the fishermen or women which pond to fish in. So what I mean by that is Divershefy has a pool of qualified women ready to be available for those positions. So we need to make people aware of that. So at the request of our viewers, we will take a bit more time after this session to talk about the club itself. And you can also ask questions about the club if you have any at the end of the session. For today, our topic is how women in funding influence the gender balance in the startup ecosystem. We will have about 45 minutes for a fireside chat and followed by a 20-minute question and answer session. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section during the discussion, because in the chat we might not see it, and we will answer as many as possible. This session will be recorded and made available to all registered participants until October 30th. So we're extending the time period for everybody to watch these videos until October 30th. Therefore, thereafter, after October 30th, the recordings will only be available to members of the Divershefy Club. If you want to sign up to become a member, you can visit www.divershefy.club. So back to our today's session. Let me introduce the speakers to you. Sushma Kaushik is a partner at Avishka Capital and brings with her over 18 years of diverse experience in the field of early stage investing, small business incubation, and consulting across sectors. She's a 40 under 40 alternate investment professional. Sushma has a very high sense of ownership, doesn't like to compromise on quality, and is very good in managing people. She's also a travelaholic. She has been at the Mount Everest base camp, which is very recommendable. I applaud you for that. Our second speaker is Aditi Balbir. She's the founder of V Resorts and an angel investor. She has written for the Economic Times, Your Story, and the Times of India, and has contributed to the Travel and Tourism Report launched by the World Economic Forum in 2017. She has been passionate about traveling also since a young age and has traveled across 6 continents. Before starting her venture, she worked in private equity, and now after successfully exiting her startup, she's looking to support and mentor other women entrepreneurs. Thank you to both of you for joining today, and I'm handing over to Aditi now.
Thank you, Sylvia. I can make a bit of a feminist remark before we start that, you know, women in funding are obviously more passionate, more diligent because it's 8:30 on a Sunday night and we are both here. So on that note, let us begin, Sushma. Thank you so much for coming today. Is your video frozen or is it just me? Sylvia, can you see her?
My pleasure, Aditi. And
oh, there she is. Yes. Okay.
Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Sushma, we can hear you, but your video is frozen. We can't see you. Okay.
Is this better?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Perfect. Great.
We cannot
we'd love to
yet.
have, yeah, I know. We'd love to have your video on.
I suggest, Aditi, you can get started anyway. And maybe Sushma can.
Video and my network. So I'll just put on.
Okay, so I will begin. I mean, I wish I could see you. It would be nicer. But let me just start. So, you know, even before we talk about women in funding, women entrepreneurs, let's talk a little bit about the world of funding. Let's give everyone a perspective about what are the type of investments that are out there, what are the sort of companies that can, you know, that get funded and so on. So if you can give us a perspective on that, Sushma. Okay, I think that's probably better. Yeah, we can see you also.
Perfect. Sorry. Firstly, thank you so much, Aditi. I know it's a Sunday night, and most people, Sunday night in India at least, and most people are quite busy preparing for the next day. But Sylvia, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. You know, I'm really delighted to be part of this club. And, you know, I do look forward to a lot of interactions because this is the need for now. And we do face a lot of challenges in encouraging more women in leadership levels and also in investing at senior levels. So, you know, I'm really grateful that you've given me this opportunity to share my views and, you know, to hopefully inspire more people, more women to come on such, you know, on such platforms. Yeah, so Aditi, you know, over to you. What was the specific question? Because I think I lost you there, briefly.
Sure. So my question was, even before we talk about, you know, women in funding, let's give a little bit of a background about funding, the different types of funding that's available, the type of companies that get funded and so on.
Sure. Yeah, so quickly about funding is all about the capital stack, right? And capital stack ranges all the way from debt to equity. And both are very important in the life cycle of any business, right? So playing important decision-making roles across the capital stack is important. But most specifically, when we are talking of equity funding, which is, you know, what we are going to focus on today, So the whole spectrum or the landscape of equity funding ranges from, say, seed funding, moves on to seed and angel kind of are used interchangeably. Then you move to a Series A kind of a VC funding, which is venture capital funding, which is early stage investing. Then you move on to slightly early growth funding, which could be the Series B, Series C kind of funding. Then you move on to the growth funding, which is where the private equity guys come in. And then you move on to capital markets and public market kind of funding, which is where all the large asset managers start playing larger roles. And that could be, whether it's PMS, whether it's asset managers like mutual funds, all of them start playing a role. And then as you go slightly higher up the ladder, you find there are other asset managers who look at, who straddle across all of these funding activities and also play a very important role of being LPs. Who are LPs? LPs are limited partners who fund smaller funds. So they are the ones who seed general partners to invest in businesses. So if you look at it as a pecking order, these guys are on top of the food chain, and then everyone else follows through. So that's the entire funding landscape, to put it in a nutshell. Of course, there are multiple striations even in this, but just for simplicity's sake, this is how it would be. And to talk more specifically about women in investing in just this capital stack, and I'm not even referring to the debt capital stack, is women are extremely underrepresented. And that's across the board. And when I say underrepresented, I mean more specifically in leadership position, in decision-making positions. Right, you might find a lot of women fresh out of college, joining in as analysts, associates, that's all fantastic. But it's very, very rare that you find women rise up to decision-making positions. And there was some data that I was looking at which says less than 1% of asset managers have women in decision-making positions. So that's the state of affairs we're trying to address.
In fact, on the other side of the entrepreneurs, when you look at all these different stacks of capital, then entrepreneurs are also very underrepresented. And even in, if we look at angel to Series A, I mean, there were just about less than 5% capital that went to women in 2019. And I'm sure 2020 numbers are obviously worse. So even in this sector, we are underrepresented. Let's talk about specifically about the venture capital space, because that's what we're going to talk about today. So right from, say, from the angel side all the way till you reach private equity, why do you think there are such few women, and why do you think there are such few women who are in those decision-making roles?
I wish I knew, but I can only attempt to make some guesses. Firstly, and I'm only talking from a India context. I am not an expert of understanding what the global context in something like this would be. But in India context, the whole VC space itself is a relatively newer space. And if you look around, the kind of investors who came into becoming VCs, and they probably started, just around the time the dot-com bubble was beginning to happen in India, and most of the fund managers were largely entrepreneurs who had a dot-com business or such entrepreneurs who then moved on into the investing space, right? And so we are basically mapping it down to the 2000s and the late 1990s. And so clearly, probably there were not too many women entrepreneurs back in the day to have then, migrated to becoming investors of repute today. That could be one of the reasons why we don't see so many senior women. One exception is, of course, a very respected industry veteran, Vani Kola. She herself was an entrepreneur back in the Valley. Yeah. And then, and she belonged to that vintage when she moved to India, she then started her fund. Right, so that was just a natural progression. Unfortunately, probably in India there were not too many women entrepreneurs who could take that direction, and so that's why you're not seeing so many women in decision making positions. But then if you ask me, okay, fine, we leave the decision making positions out of the discussion for now. What about in other levels? There, I have no answer. I don't know why there are not enough women. There are enough, as in it's not like there are no women there. It's not an all main bastion. There are women entering this sector, and there is a lot of interest, but they continue to be limited in numbers, and they don't tend to move upwards. So that's a problem we
Yeah,
need to fix.
exactly. So, in fact, I've been going all over these colleges, and when I go to them and I ask those women, "Do you want to be entrepreneurs?" So they say no. So then I said, "Okay, do you want a career in investing?" They're like, "No, not really." So I'm like, "Okay, what do you want to do?" So then they say, "We want a career in consulting." Okay, so that seems to be like the flavor that, oh, we're going to do consulting jobs. So there is also, like a little bit of a lack of understanding about investing. There is also, startups have become the flavor just recently. And even now I see more men, like, I mean, when you look at IITs and all that, more men are, interested in getting into those entrepreneurial spaces. Women are still pretty, I mean, if we find a good job, in a consulting thing, we'll be happy. So maybe it is more also of a mindset issue. Now, even the women who get into these funds, see, it's very different. I mean, I started my career like that as well. So it's very different to be on the other side of the table and be an associate or an analyst. If you start your life there, how do you really progress to become the investment professional? That is basically my question for you. In fact, my next question was about how do I get into that career if I want that to be my path.
Sure. No, Aditi, absolutely right. I think, there is a lack of awareness, right? And as I mentioned, the VC or the investing, sector or space is fairly early, any which ways in a country like ours, right? So it's probably less than 20 years old. So, and you really need to build a pipeline of, trained force to enter this space. And entrepreneurship itself, you started seeing a push only about 10 years back, right? I mean, first, I think culturally,
Absolutely.
Asians in general have an aversion to failure, right? We don't take failure in our stride, and it's very hushed. It's not something that people are comfortable speaking of, and failure of any kind, right? Where families don't accept failure very well, so even society doesn't accept failure very well. And entrepreneurship is all about overcoming these hurdles and challenges, right? So if your entire culturally itself, you are not aligned to entrepreneurship, then it becomes that much more harder, right? And on top of that, if you bring in a woman or a gender context to this, it becomes that much more challenging, right? So, first is creating awareness. Second is letting people know that failure is all right. And, probably celebrating some of the entrepreneurs who have failed and did okay, right? And there are quite a few of the entrepreneurs. So all the success stories that we read and hear about aren't overnight successes. Even Byju's, which is the most celebrated startup in India today, and is known as the decacorn, and it's doing so well. I mean, go back and read the entrepreneur's journey. It didn't start overnight. It's about 10, 12 years old, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
those
true.
are the things that one needs to celebrate, that it's not something that happens. Not everyone is a white hat junior. You do have to,
Everyone wants to be a white hat junior, though. That
everyone
has
wants to
just
be.
come on like, yeah, that's
It's
such a
fine.
great example,
That's aspirational. It's aspirational.
Yeah,
It's absolutely okay to have these kinds of role models. But the
correct.
reality is the Byju's. And even if you become a Byju's, that's fantastic.
No, so tell me one thing, is it a prerequisite to be an entrepreneur before you become an investment professional? I mean, what about the people who start on that associate track? How do they go up?
So very frankly, I also started from an entrepreneurial journey, and
Okay.
it helped me, right? Because I was an entrepreneur for 4 years, and it was the most challenging part of my career. And luckily or unluckily, I don't know, I started on my entrepreneurial journey soon after my college, probably
Hmm.
because I didn't know better. And that
Hmm.
really helped me because I kind of understood the challenges of being an entrepreneur, what it takes to build businesses. Putting things on Excel sheet is probably the easiest, and that's what, I mean, without meaning to put anyone down, but that's pretty much what consultants do, right? An
Yeah,
entrepreneur actually has to go and execute those numbers, and it's
execute it,
not
right.
an Excel sheet exercise there, right? That's a lot of sweat and blood and toil that goes into achieving those numbers. And so I'll say I was far from a successful entrepreneur. In fact, I I will admit I was not. I was probably a failed entrepreneur, though I did manage to sell my business. But I turned out pretty fine because now I can understand when an entrepreneur speaks
Understand.
to me of the challenges that they face, right?
I
So
also feel,
probably having
yeah.
that,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
absolutely. Because I also feel that, the person you're talking to when you're managing a portfolio, they also respect you because you're an entrepreneur. So they say, okay, she or he has gone through that journey and therefore can understand better what we're doing and what we're trying to do. Also understand the pitfalls better. I don't think that entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs, don't have the appetite for, taking consulting lessons, as it were, right? And you were mentioning how tough it is to to speak to them and to get them to understand what you're talking about. So I think it really makes a difference if you are an entrepreneur.
No,
Okay, great.
absolutely. And then now, sorry, just one point when you said, when people
Yeah,
take on the associate and the analyst track of getting
yeah.
through, it's fine. It's just longer. It requires a lot more rigor, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And it takes longer because businesses in India have very long gestation times. So to really understand the implication of what you have underwritten as an investor, you need to see
Hmm.
one full cycle. So just by making one investment, the next year you can't say, okay, now I'm ready to become a partner. Far from it, right? Because you don't
Correct.
know anything about, what would happen to those businesses. So those are the challenges of going just the linear route.
Great. So let's talk now about the case for women in investing. So why should there be more investment professionals? What is the sort of lens that they bring? What is the sort of expertise that they bring? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. No, I'll tell you why it's now more than before, more important
Yeah.
for women in the
Okay.
funding industry. And that's because the share of wallet by women is
Hmm.
going up. So recently I was on a trip to China, and I
Hmm.
realized that there men and women are 50% equally represented in the workforce. Second,
Oh,
they
okay.
have
Hmm.
equal contribution in the share of wallet in a household. In fact, women probably have a higher share of decision making on what gets spent in household items than the men do, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
of course,
Hmm.
consumerism is all about, mostly about women and their spending requirements, right?
Hmm.
So with
Hmm.
this, and of course, India is very, very far off from achieving the China numbers, but it is an increasing trend that women in workforce are going up. Women, educated women, working women are taking more decisions on how money is spent on household items. So if that is the case, if women are the true target segment or TG, so to put it, then shouldn't
Hmm.
women investors be evaluating these companies that are catering to women, right? Like for example, a Nika, right? Who would have thought that women would buy makeup, or whether there is a need for makeup beyond a Lakme, right? And that too online. For men, they would be like, aren't there already so many offline brands? Why would you need to create a platform for women? As it is, women don't spend. But look at the success. And it was by a woman entrepreneur, right? Probably it took a woman to understand the deficiencies in that product. And so this is the trend, and hence there is a need for women who understand the TG better, and hence make the right investment decisions.
Nika is a very good example actually, because I mean, when you talk to the very large funds out there, I don't want to name them, but the main ones, they all say that it's a missed opportunity, and they all say exactly what you're saying, that nobody could have thought that the market was so large and she would do so well. So yeah, it's you're absolutely correct. And had there been more women in those funds taking the decision, maybe they would have seen it for what it was.
In
Really.
fact, a little bit of trivia. One of the
Hmm.
investors of Nika,
Hmm.
it's a respected VC fund,
Hmm.
and actually, it was the women in the team who pushed the case for
Yeah, I'm
Nika as
sure.
an investment opportunity. And the women, I'm not sure how senior or junior they were, but they were so vehement and they were so supportive of this transaction that they really pushed their partners to go forward and make that investment. And I think it's been a fabulous investment for them.
Fabulous investment. Yeah, fabulous. Okay. So let's talk from the other side of the table. What do you think? If there are more women in investing, do you think there will be more women entrepreneurs? Do you think more women will come up? Will they feel more comfortable, let's say, with women in investing?
I do hope so, because women tend to be nurturers, right? I mean, they do tend to encourage more people, whether male entrepreneurs or women entrepreneurs. Women investors tend to be more nurturing, right? So they are more supportive. If mistakes are made, they do tend to be a little more supportive of it, give them the right counseling, guidance. And so maybe if women do come into entrepreneurship and there are more women investors around, it could be a winning combination as well. Also, women in entrepreneurs find all male teams very intimidating, and rightfully so, right? I
Hmm.
mean, imagine entering a boardroom with 15 men sitting on one side, and this woman walking in, no matter how confident she is, uh, it can scare anyone out, right? I mean, she'd be like, oh goodness, this is going to be quite scary. And then the grilling begins, and there are only questions, and the questions are more like prevention questions rather than promotion questions, where every question is hurled at the entrepreneur wanting a reason not to invest. They're not seeking a reason to invest. And that's another reason, or the way questions are asked to entrepreneurs. Recently there was a research which suggested that male entrepreneurs are asked more promotional questions, which is, what is your ambition, how big do you want to become, how big will this company grow to.
And no one ever asked me
Unfortunately,
that.
for women, they are
Hmm.
only asking prevention questions, that is how to hedge their losses. That, what is your break even? At what level will
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have to shut shop? Those kind of questions. And it's just inbuilt. That's a bias that's there. And women entrepreneurs have to deal with it.
Oh, so interesting. This is very interesting. I can vouch for it myself. Okay. I've never been asked any questions like that. In fact, women say, they ask you, are you married? What are you going to do with your family? I never got asked all those questions, but I got asked all the questions that you're saying. Everything to do with risk was addressed. What will happen if this goes? What will happen if this happens? They only wanted to see what I would do if something went wrong. There was nothing, and I never got those questions. So that's an
So,
interesting
in
thing.
all fairness, risk questions are asked to all entrepreneurs, right? I mean, you're first
Hmm.
trying to understand the business. But
Yeah.
even before the risk questions are asked, the promotion questions are asked first. And how big is this business going to be? How long will you take to get to this level? What does it take for you to get here? Is it just capital? Is it people? Is it something else? Women don't get asked that first. So you can't set the right foundation or the right, agenda when you start the conversation, unfortunately.
I have some interesting anecdotes from fellow entrepreneurs. So, Kanika Tekriwal of Jet Set Go, right? Her first sales pitch when she went, and it was a room full of men. Obviously, aviation is anyways a boys only club. And she went in and they asked her that, can you ask everybody what they want to have to drink? Because they didn't know she was the entrepreneur. They thought that she was just here to take the order. Can you believe it? Like the first ever question. So she was obviously very taken aback. And she said, I knew at that time that I'd lost the pitch. I'm not going to be able to pitch to this group at all. So yeah, so I have stories like that as well. Sylvia, over to you. Do you want to take a poll right now or should we do it at the end of the session? We wanted to actually ask the audience whether they would feel more comfortable with, yeah, so let's do that with the women on the investing team.
So please enter. If you think women entrepreneurs are more comfortable with female investors or fund managers. Okay. Still have about 66%. I'll wait a little longer. But there is, okay. So let me end the poll and share the results. Aditi, you wanna comment on the results?
Yes, absolutely. So 27% people say yes, 47% say maybe, and 27% say no. Well, that's well good to know, I guess. So probably doesn't make so much of a difference. But I still feel like Sushma is saying rightly that walking into a room full of men can get daunting, at least in the beginning, and then I guess you get used to it, right?
That is true.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk from your perspective now. What do you think about the women entrepreneurs? What do you think about the way that they come to you? Are there some gaps that are there?
Yeah. No, so of late, I have been mentoring quite a few women entrepreneurs. I've been on many women entrepreneur only pitches just to understand, where the gap is. Because very frankly, in our own fund, we get close to 13 to 14 pitches a week, right? So while I'm not party to all the pitches that happen during the week, but even the 3 or 4 that I hear, the number of women co-founders who are there, if there are, they don't come to the forefront in making the pitch to begin with, right? So it's always their male counterpart who is making the pitch. So for one, I really don't know how good or bad the female co-founder is to begin with to make a decision or to take a view on her capability. But when in the women only pitch sessions that I have interacted with, I have found, and maybe this is just me, but I have been talking to a few other colleagues and it's been across the board. Women tend to be very fearful. And again, the fearfulness comes from the fact that they're probably scared of overestimating things or aggressively pushing numbers. And so they're, when you ask them, how big is your business going to be in 5 years? If you ask a man, he will not even blink and he will say 500 crores in 5 years, easy. I've asked many women and one in probably 15 that I have spoken to was brave enough to say 100 crores. we as investors know that, even 500 crores is also a stretch, and maybe even 100 crores is a stretch. But women are just fearful. They will not go out there and
You have
be
to dream that
aggressive
bit.
and stick to their case or make a case, because constantly they are thinking, maybe I won't be able to achieve it. I don't know what it'll take to reach those numbers. So maybe it's better to err on the side of caution, underrepresent the numbers. If we do well, then good for everybody. That itself is a challenge, right? Because then the investor is thinking that if you're going to start at such a low base, where will we end up, right? So those are the kind of challenges that I see when I speak to women entrepreneurs. There somewhere is a lack of confidence, not in the skill that they have, right? So if you're talking of IT product, they'll be fantastic, right? I mean, they'll be top of their charts in terms of the performance. They have always been leaders wherever they have been doing very well, A rating all the time, consistently. But when it comes to business, they seem to lack confidence. I don't know if it is because of lack of support, whether it's lack of family support, lack of social support, lack of colleagues helping them out. I don't know what it is, but there clearly is some gap that is making women more fearful. And
No,
Aditi, I
but
would like to hear your thoughts on this.
yeah, because I exactly come exactly from what you're saying. I would also think the same thing. See, I'll tell you in my case, when we used to do the exact same exercise, 5 years from now, how big is your business going to be? On an Excel sheet, it says 1,000 crores. When I used to say that number, I used to start laughing. I would laugh. I'm telling you, I would be laughing while saying that number. So then people would be like, you don't seem convinced. I'm like, who knows what the hell will happen in 5 years? So I'm like, listen, I know that I've put in 10 crores for this year. I'm going to achieve 10 crores. So doesn't the gender lens then comes into play at that time that it's not about not confident. It's about, and like you said, you don't know what will happen. It's about being more conservative. So I thought that being realistic, being more conservative, by the way, you're absolutely correct, because all my counterparts raised more money than me. Four companies started together. All of them raised more money. The market seemed much smaller than my market for some reason, but they raised much more money than I ever raised, right? So, what you're saying is, it seems correct. But then at that time, what I would say is that, if there are women or in the investing side, shouldn't they know that, look, ye woman entrepreneur hai, so, she will be conservative. Doesn't that gender lens then comes into play?
So, that's the thing, right? So you might be lucky in reaching out to one or two women investors who are gender lens based investors, right? And it's a very new trend where there are probably two, maybe three funds in
Yeah.
all doing gender lens investing. The rest, people are only doing lip service, unfortunately. But see, as I said, there's a whole continuum of investors. There is seed, early, early growth, public markets. All along this value chain, I'm sorry, you won't find too many women who are going to be supportive of your gender lens hope. You have to stand on your own feet. You have to be sustainable on your own. You should be able to attract equity or funding, not because you're a woman, because your business is good and you're a damn good entrepreneur, right? So to use that as an excuse that don't they know that I'm a woman and that I will say things like this won't cut it, unfortunately. But what will help is probably, women mentors who can help this entrepreneur to say, listen, this doesn't work,
If you say
right?
it,
I
it's
mean,
not
look at
gonna work.
your male counterpart, and this is what you're being pitted against. So if there is an Aditi who has walked into the room and saying, I assure you a 15 crore top line next year, versus a male entrepreneur who walks in and says, I will promise 100 crores, even if he just achieves 20% of it, I will still
Confident.
err towards him, right? I will still say, if I really have to put my money, will I put it in Aditi or should I put it there? And it has nothing to do with me being a woman or being a man. I would still say, yeah, I mean, maybe this guy has a capability and he will do it. So
Yeah.
that is where the challenge comes. And so women need to mentor women to say, stop being fearful. take the leap of faith, go for the big numbers, get a little more aggressive, and who knows, you will be able to do much better than your male counterpart.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you because the number says it all, right? So, I mean, in my case also, that was an issue. You have spoken about a couple of different sorts of bias that women face when they are trying to raise money. What are some of the other biases that you think women face when they raise money? Why is it more challenging for them?
See, one is the classical bias, right, which is a familiarity bias. And it's not just a male or female thing. All of us tend to gravitate towards things we understand, do, see, we relate to. So that's a classic familiarity bias. So that's why, you also find all male teams. Why? Because they're more comfortable in hiring more male, right?
Yeah.
For them, suddenly if a woman comes with a very different perspective, they don't know how to internalize that. And secondly, they want to believe she's wrong. They don't go with the assumption that, maybe there is an element of being right in what she's saying, because they're not used to it, right? And so, and that is where the familiarity bias is the biggest curse of any investor, male and female, because we also tend to make investments in only areas we are familiar with. We will not go outside our comfort zone because we don't know how it will pan out. And that is why diversity of teams with different perspectives, with with diverse experiences plays a very big role in having a good fund manager team who comes with good perspectives, who understands markets differently. And that is why I was seeing one Goldman Sachs report again, which said funds which had more women, at least 33% more women representation as fund managers, did 100
Did better.
bips better, performed better than their all male counterpart asset managers. That says a lot.
Correct. Yeah. It's basically about just diversity and having different viewpoints. And that's what investing is also all about at the end of the day. Great. I
And it's
think
not
we've
it's
had,
not just women. It's not just about
yeah,
women
it's not just women.
diversity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's color,
It's
race,
across
everything.
spectrum. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Sushma. We have a couple of questions, so we can start taking them now. I'll read out a couple of them. Okay. Yogini
Sure.
says, to what extent does the pseudo logic of women not being risk takers get in the way of them getting support as either entrepreneurs or investors? Would appreciate suggestions on how they can navigate these roadblocks.
So as I said, having the right mentors to help women overcome these challenges. Unfortunately, it is a bias, right? I mean, as I said, the example where a male counterpart is saying, I will achieve 100 crore number, where the woman is thumping the table and saying, I know I will achieve 15 crores. For all you know, that guy will also achieve 15 crores. But it's just the comfort, right? I mean, maybe he will achieve 80%. Who knows? It's still better than 15. So, having mentors, both male and female mentors, to guide these women entrepreneurs of how to improve the pitch, how to be more articulate, how to explain the execution capability of women in business, could probably help women better in either able to attract more capital, or grow businesses, or make right investments, all of them.
Perfect. Okay. And it's also, by the way, very good to have an answer to how you're going to achieve that big number, that 1,000 crores or 500 crores. Little mathematical formula will go a long way because people definitely do ask. All right. Going to the next question.
Yeah.
Geeta says that there is a general perception that women do not scale businesses. Is that correct?
So, very frankly, I think there are very few data points to say something like this. So like we have about 70 odd investments, and I will use the data that I have as a sample. And of the 70 odd businesses, we probably have about 15%, probably 10 companies, which have women entrepreneurs or co-founders. And of these 10 odd companies, I must say that barring one or two, the others have scaled better or equivalent to their to a non-female run business. So so I don't think it's only a perception. There are not enough data points to swing one way or the other. But for us, it has been a good data point to say that women teams can also perform as well, if not better, than all male teams.
Perfect. Swati Chawla says that, when there is a woman who's not coming in, when there's a co-founder, do you also ask them to come forward in such pitches?
Absolutely. In fact, in meetings, and I have observed this multiple times, where there are, a group of co-founders, and obviously the men try to, speak first and kind of only introduce the other in the team as part, a co-founder. We do say that, we would like to hear every co-founder speak up. And so that's something we do push for and encourage. And also in all male teams, we encourage teams to bring in more. Am I
sorry?
audible?
Yeah, you're audible now. Yes, you're audible now.
Yeah. No, so what I was saying is we do encourage all male teams to bring in more women on board.
Oh, okay. 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 Another question is, the problem right now is that women are such a minority in leadership positions that they are trying very hard to be like their male peers and to fit in with them, and so are not very supportive of other women, which is why I would prefer an enlightened male advocate than a woman at this point. And when there are more women leaders, they will feel threatened and insecure about their own position and will be able to express their authentic, nurturing selves. This may be why the poll came out the way it did. Do you think so?
So I'm surprised that you feel women get threatened. In fact, I found it to be more a main domain thing, that they feel more insecure when women are more successful or high-performing women are around the table. I found men kind of get a little more insecure. But you are absolutely right. We are in our early years of being supportive of women. And so having male champions becomes very important to further the need for women in leadership.
Yeah, that's true.
And classic example is what happened in ICI.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, can I just turn off my video? I think I'm having a problem with my video.
Sure, but it's going fine. Yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So one of the examples of having male champions is in the case of ICICI Bank. Everyone knows that Mr. K.V. Kamath kind of promoted the women, and they used to call him the angels of ICICI Bank, which was, from who are the three women? Would you remember them? There were three women, right?
No, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, Chanda Kochar and
Chanda, obviously, but
yeah,
two others, right? Are you here?
Yeah. So no. So yeah, I can hear you. So that's why it required a male champion to bring these women on top, who then encouraged more women in the leadership teams. So that
Absolutely.
I didn't see insecurity there. I saw that as encouragement.
Absolutely. Okay. Swati again says, though that is the case, even when women are negotiating a salary, there is a leapfrog, hence there is a leapfrog of whatever man's earnings in 15 years when compared to women. So basically what she means is that it's not just the case in pitches, but also in when they're negotiating for a salary, they will obviously push less and ask for less. And that's why, they don't get the raises that the men typically do.
No, absolutely. And, I'm
That is
also
for sure.
guilty. Yeah, I'm also guilty party
I'm very
here.
guilty myself.
Yeah, no, because again, that stems from us being fearful inherently. Somewhere deep down, we are very scared to ask things. And so now, finally, when I speak to the younger lot, I tell them, what is there to fear? Why don't you just ask your ask, and the rest will be seen. Let's see how the other person takes it. So we should encourage more women to break through this fear barrier that we tend to have, the fear psychosis that women tend to probably have more than men. I don't know how men feel on these matters. But if we encourage that of more women, probably we will overcome some of these hurdles.
Yeah. Is taking numbers a good thing? Won't further investor drill if the numbers are not achieved?
Sorry, you'll have to repeat it.
I'll repeat that. So the question is that is taking numbers an issue? Isn't it an issue for an investor if he drills, more carefully and he wants to know the theory behind those numbers? And what if they are not achieved?
Sure.
So isn't
So
that
no,
an
let
issue?
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely right. But I'm just saying, in the first pitch, when there is a male entrepreneur and a woman entrepreneur, where the male is saying 500 crores, the woman is saying 15 crores, um, the woman won't even make it past the due diligence stage of an investor to even check and validate whether this person is going to reach 15 crores or 100 crores. The male counterpart might get rejected for reasons that you mentioned, that they won't fit the criteria and there is no belief that there'll be execution capability and stuff like that. But at least he made it through the
He made
first
it through
gate.
the.
He didn't even make that, right? So that is where the challenge is.
Yeah, I mean, if I can explain that a little bit better, because see, when VCs make an investment anyway, they're expecting large numbers. You make an investment in a large market where you know that you will get a couple of bips market share, and so the numbers have to translate to become very large. So if you don't have that vision when you're going into the office and making your pitch, the VC usually isn't interested because their vision is always very large. So if the entrepreneur is not matching that and with execution capability and with a theory behind the maths, then usually there is a disconnect. So like Sushma says, I mean, no matter what it is, unfortunately you have to I mean, if the plan or the number that you want to achieve in 5-10 years is not very large, then you may probably not even need the VC funding. So it's just more a nuance of the VC funding space. Am I right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You got it right.
Yeah. Okay. The next one is what is the scope for creating venture in India for women funding? Vidya Iyer.
Sorry, what is the scope for creating
For
venture, meaning?
creating venture in India for women funding. I actually don't know whether it's a company for women funding or a venture for women funding. I guess it probably means a VC fund for women funding. What is the scope for creating a VC fund for women?
No, there is ample scope. There are lots of people nowadays who are into, who, especially from LPs. And this is, again, as I mentioned, in the hierarchy of investors, the LPs are the ones who, decide on the flow of monies, right? Which fund manager gets how much money. And so now it's become a global narrative of wanting to bring in diversity. And so one important thing is, I don't know how familiar you are, but there's something called the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah.
And all the countries, all the major nations have all signed up to achieving certain sustainable development goals by 2030. And one such sustainable development goal is achieving gender equality. And so if you want to achieve that, you have to support more women entrepreneurship, bring in more women in the workforce, treat women equally as their male counterparts. And so they are also setting up large pools of capital for women fund managers as well. In fact, one of the reports again was suggesting names like Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley are all setting up $500 million funds just for women fund managers. Of course, it's very, very small in the overall scheme of things. The opportunity of women itself is about a $3 trillion opportunity, right? So if you're going to give 100 million, 500 million, it's very small, but at least it is a start, right? And then it is for women to deliver. And once they are able to deliver, it will be recognized that, yes, this is definitely a set that is worth investing in. And then that pool will only increase. So it's early years, but we should be patient. We should be supportive. We should put our best foot forward in delivering on numbers and results. And then we will see more pools of money flowing to women entrepreneurs.
Right. She has later, by the way, clarified that is there a scope for creating a startup in India for women funding? So I don't know what that means. Are you going to help those women, or what are you going to do in the startup? There's a lot of scope for women entrepreneurship per se, and there are a lot of things that people are already doing. There are enough accelerators, incubators, there are consulting firms that help women, the mentoring firms, the works pretty much, where women entrepreneurship is concerned. Like Sushma said, it's a very big opportunity. So I'm sure there is a scope for creating that startup, right? Okay. Sahiti has a question which says, will a combination of strategy and operation consulting and technology experience totaling a good 15 years help you in securing a mid-level position in a VC firm? How should one go about to land such interviews?
Okay. So that's a interesting ask. The way I would look at it, and it's not, again, not just for women, for everybody, is to encourage networking. Again, it's an area where women are not very strong. We inherently are very uncomfortable networking with people who are outside our circle. Networking is important, reaching out to a lot of people, speaking to people, seeking advice, seeking help is important. And similarly, if you want to get into investing activity, you really need to interact with the team, because see, investing is a long gestation business. It is not unlike public markets where you enter, if you made a mistake, you cut your positions and you get out. Unfortunately, in the VC PE world, your mistake can cost dearly and will last 10 years at least, right? So, and hence teams are very important. People spend a lot of time getting the right team. And so if you have an opportunity of working probably as an intern or just on a pro bono project work, just to showcase your talent, that you are the right fit for that particular fund, that would work better than just, giving an interview and waiting for a response.
Perfect. Yeah. So networking does help. Okay. The next question is, by preferring high figures coming from males and funding them, are we encouraging brazen attitude from men instead of grilling them for it? When you say funds with more women on panels do better, do you think being conservative, more a trait of women, actually helps? So does being conservative help in investing is the question.
Again, there are multiple questions to this. Just being conservative alone is not a benchmark to whether you are a good entrepreneur or not. The bigger question is are you as an entrepreneur capable of navigating the challenges that environment throws your way, right? Just by saying, yes, I will achieve 15 crores, say a COVID hits you, what will you do?
Yeah.
Right? Will that 15 become zero? Or will you still say, yes, I will still achieve 15 crores? What does that mean? Right? Being conservative, 15 crores, excellent, very good. But a COVID has hit, what does that mean? Right? So uncertainties are there. And how will you tackle those uncertainties? And if you're able to, provide that kind of confidence to investors who are putting their hard-earned money, then you have a case.
And what about in investing? Being conservative in investing, is that a trait that helps?
So again, there are, as I mentioned, that there's a whole continuum of investors, and every investor looks for returns, which is commensurate to the risk they are taking, right? So if you are in a high risk investing category, which is in the very early stages of investing, between the seed round and say a series B kind of a round, there the risk, the inherent risk is higher, and hence your return expectation should be higher. However, as you start moving farther away in that continuum, the risk comes down, and hence the rewards are also low or conservative. So if you're saying that women tend to be more conservative and hence they lend themselves better for later stage investing, then yes, absolutely, there is a case to be made. Look at more public market investing, look at more blue chip kind of investing. Maybe that is very intrinsic to the way we are wired. And that's definitely something worth considering.
Yeah. In any case, the definition of an entrepreneur as well as a VC is the ability to take risk. So unfortunately, being conservative will basically mean that you keep your money with you and you don't invest anywhere, I guess. It's pretty scary when you actually think about it. Yeah. Okay, this one's interesting. Yogini asks, what is the most memorable pitch by a woman that you have heard? What made it memorable? And out of curiosity, was it a mix or was it a women-only forum?
That's
an interesting
that's
one.
very
I
interesting.
also
Now I
want to
need to
know.
jog my memory. Okay, so the most memorable pitch was, I will say, in my own portfolio company. There was this woman who was a co-founder along with her husband, and they make they are in the FMCG business, in the food business basically, and more specific, wellness food business. And so for a change, when this couple walked in, and it was a room full of all of us, and thankfully in our team, we are almost 50% women and 50% male. So that kind of probably helped her cut ice. And we kind of connected. And she made the pitch appealing to the women's sensibilities, because it was actually a children's food product brand, right? And
I think we've lost you again.
I really apologize for this.
No problem. You're back again.
Yeah. So not only did she, really address to our women's sensibilities, but also the fact that most of us were mothers in that team. We kind of related to her. And I must say, all our male counterparts were just staring at us, asking us that, what is she telling the truth? Is this real? Like, are these food products important for children? Is this how you give food to your children? So that's when I realized that, it is important to connect to the right set of people. And her pitch was so compelling that we went ahead and did make that investments in a brand called Soulful, which sells these ragi bites for children. And it has a very strong agricultural connect as well, because they are looking at millets as a very hardy grain, increasing farm level incomes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that was not her pitch. Her pitch was to the women sitting across the table, right? And it kind of just, we connected immediately, and we all fought very hard for that investment to go through, because otherwise it was not intuitive for the men. And we had to convince our male colleagues that, listen, this is a great product, we have to invest in it.
Wow, fantastic. So, as Tyrion Lannister says from Game of Thrones, there is nothing more powerful than a good story. And I think that's what sells these days. A good story will sell and will sail you through the marketing bit as well, and you'll be able to get more people, more customers, more investors, everyone on your, on your side of the court, if you have that powerful story. I guess we're at our very end. Sushma, thank you so much. I think you've answered all the questions that we got in the Q&A section. Sylvia, over to you.
Thanks, Aditi.
Thank you. Thank you so much to both of you. I actually have somebody else in the line that might want to say something. She's also an investor. Let me just check if she wants to join us, Ruchi, and give maybe a short comment if she's still there. Let me see. No, I think she might have left by now. Okay. Then I must say, we're coming to the end of a full week of events about the topic of women in leadership. And the recording for these sessions will be made available to our registered participants, as I said, until October 30th. So you have some time to catch up if you missed some sessions. The question is, what is next? What comes now? So we actively work together with women and men in order to bring more women into top leadership positions. And we are creating a network to make that happen. So why do we need a network like this? Well, our research has shown that there are three main issues that keep women from reaching those top positions. And I like to call it the last mile connectivity that is missing for women. One is the unconscious bias. The second is the lack of high-level network, as Sushma also said just now. And women are not seen. They are not visible enough. So the first point of unconscious bias, what Divershefy is doing about it is raising awareness and consciousness around the issues so that there is less unconscious bias. It might become more conscious, and then maybe the bias goes away to some degree with panel discussions, fireside chats, and similar like we had today. And we will be holding these kind of events on every 20th of the month going forward. To the second point of high-level network, Divershefy is creating such a high-level network for women in boardrooms and C-suites who help other women to get there. We have virtual subject matter expert groups, meetings of local groups. Women can directly connect via the platform and also request mentoring. What is unique about the Divershefy Club is that high-level women can also connect with board members, investors, and corporate leaders directly in order to increase their exposure to this network. So we have actively encouraged our action committee members, which is the board think tank, investor committee, and corporate council, to open doors for women to join boardrooms and C-suites. And we are actually placing women in those positions. So women who want to join the club need to be serious and ready to actually get into those positions. And they need to be willing to invest time and a little bit of money to do so. To inform and train women about what is required to hold such positions like boardroom and C-suite, we are offering masterclasses for those kind of levels every 10th of the month going forward. To the third point, women are not visible enough. One feature that Divershefy will be offering is a speakers platform. It is important that women are incredibly visible, like Aaron Fetterman said this week. So really incredibly visible, not just a little bit. So women can choose to be speakers at public events on national, regional, or global level. For our executive members, who are women who are already in boardrooms and C-suites, we offer a global network of women at this level. And there are very few such executive networks for women globally. And when they do exist, they are hard to get into for multiple reasons. Either they are very expensive, or you have to be invited by somebody you know that is already part of it, or you have to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or you might not have the right kind of color of your skin. So there's all kinds of reasons. So Divershefy offers an alternative to that, to enable women to join, who at a reasonable price, and you don't need to know somebody to bring you in. You can actually sign up online. And we do check on the LinkedIn profile if there's the level of seniority is there. You do not have to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and you really welcome racial diversity. My dream is that we have as many different kind of cultural backgrounds as possible. So we bring women from many different industries together into one shared context to support each other and enable new business opportunities also, and to expand your business into different countries, and to open doors for collaboration across borders. So executive members of the club will also be introduced to what we call pioneer women, who are global leaders at the highest level and recognized in their field. Many executive and board women that I've talked to want to also give back and help senior women who want to reach those positions, and we are making it easy for them to do so by providing a network where they can mentor women, where they can share their experience in SME groups, and where they can hold masterclasses. And to that, our first masterclass is going to be on emotional intelligence on October 20th by Steph Vermeulen. She's a South African. She's a pioneer in the field of emotional and personal intelligence, has been working in this field since 1996. She's also written a book on it. And this masterclass will be free of cost to anybody who wants to attend. You need to send an email to info@divershefy.com with the subject line masterclass in order to sign up. So we have a whole series of other events already lined up. So for that, I'm handing over to Padmini, who is our chair of the speakers committee for Divershefy Club. Over to you, Padmini.
Thank you, Sylvia. And hello, people. I hope you have really enjoyed our launch week filled with super cool insights on how women can advance into the boardrooms through our thought-provoking sessions and interesting experiences shared by our globally acclaimed speakers. We have just begun, and we will continue to gain momentum even as I speak with a growing number of registrations. So here's a peek into the upcoming speakers in our international series in the next 3 months. On November 10th, we have a masterclass on how to remain resilient and confident when entering into the C-suite and boardroom by Clarissa Christianson, a renowned midlife transformation coach and the founder of Thriving Through Transition. 20th November, we invite Manpreet Dhillon, an equity, diversity and inclusion consultant. She's also the leadership and business coach for women of culturally diverse backgrounds, and she is the founder of Beza Global in Canada. 10th of December will see us presenting a masterclass on roles and responsibilities of board members by Nihita Nagajayanti, a fellow company secretary with over 20 years of post-qualification experience in different fields such as economic research, finance, administration, and secretarial functions. In January, we will present to you Shelye Ashambhu, who is one of Silicon Valley's first female African-American CEOs. Formerly an executive at IBM and CMO at 2 public companies, she currently serves as a Fortune 500 board member and holds board seats at Verizon, Nordstrom, Roper Technologies, and Okta. Her debut book, Unapologetically Ambitious, Take Risks, Break Barriers, and Create Success on Your Own Terms, was released just on October 6th of 2020. To keep the movement growing bigger, we will continue on our mission to bring you international speakers as part of our series with relevant panel discussions, fire chats, and masterclasses in the new year. As the Reverend late Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, real change, enduring change happens one step at a time, and we are taking one step at a time. Thank you, everybody, and welcome in the upcoming series as well. Thanks, Sylvia. Over to you.
Thank you, Padmini. So, so this is kind of, we are at the end of this session also. I hope that during this launch week, you got inspired to join Divershefy Club. Again, you can sign up at www.divershefy.club. If there is any questions about the club itself, let me just have a quick look whether I can see anything right now in the Q&A section. Otherwise, feel free to email info@divershefy.com. I don't think there's any questions right now. Go to the website, look at it. We also have a flyer for individual membership if you want to know more. We can also have somebody call you and talk with you about it. If you have specific questions, please do reach out, send an email to info@divershefy.com. We'd be happy to connect with you and talk through what it means to be a Divershefy Club member. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Good night, India and Asia. Good afternoon and good evening, Europe and Africa. And have a nice day in the US. Bye-bye.